The emperor is bestowing a marriage upon the 9th prince. My sisters are terrified and weeping, but I just smiled. Forget it, I'll marry him. What in this world could be more carefree than having money, status, and no husband? But after I married, I'd already tailored dozens of mourning outfits. Yet the 9th prince refused to die. He even invites me to share his bed every night. My lady, it is so cold sleeping alone. You will marry him? Father let out a sigh of relief after hearing this. You marrying him is indeed the most appropriate choice. I am Jiang Yue, the least favored eldest daughter of the Jiang household. The emperor's choice is a 9th prince who is neither favored nor in good health. He couldn't bear to see any other daughter suffer. Except for me. I suddenly smiled. Actually, he's right. I really am the perfect fit. Because marrying the 9th prince is much more comfortable than staying at home. She can't marry him. The eldest miss is already betrothed to our cousin. Just then, Song Yuan walked through the door. He is the nephew of father's second wife, Madame Jiang. He has a poor background but is extremely talented. As soon as he entered, my sisters looked at him with shy, fluttering eyes. Father once said that after Song Yuan passed the imperial examinations, he could come to ask for my hand. Since then, everyone just assumed I was betrothed to Song Yuan, ourselves included. But this year was different. Song Yuan topped the imperial list, becoming a new favorite with a limitless future. Consequently, all three of my sisters began showing him favor, intentionally or not. I had assumed that even if Song Yuan didn't love me, he should feel grateful, so I waited for him to propose. It's not that I liked him that much. I simply wanted to leave this place, and he was a convenient option. It wasn't until the night before last that I saw him embracing my second sister, whispering sweet words to each other. Only then did I realize he looked down on me because I wasn't favored. My cousin and I share a sibling-like bond. Marriage is truly not suitable for us. No one looked surprised. They must have all known about Song Yuan and my second sister. I lost nothing as I hadn't invested any real feelings. At most, I just ate a few less pieces of meat over the last 7 years. Marriages are decided by parents and matchmakers. You two have nothing, so where is this betrothal? Father looked displeased and motioned for my nanny to step back. It is decided then, I will inform the emperor today. Before he left, he instructed Madame Jiang to prepare for my marriage. I walked away slowly, and someone called out from behind me, "Cousin Yu, I have something to tell you." Song Yuan chased after me, his eyes full of guilt. I looked at him and raised an eyebrow. My uncle told me to say that I have to obey his wishes. He lowered his eyes, his tone sounding incredibly innocent. I understand. If young Master Song has nothing else, I shall be going. Rumor in the streets is that the 9th prince won't live past the Mid-Autumn Festival. When that happens, I can help you fake your death so you can go to Jiangnian. I will soon be assigned to gain experience in Jiangnian, so I can take care of you then. Tell these things to my second sister instead. We are not related and have no ties, so don't worry about me. Song Yuan froze, looking at me in shock. He probably didn't expect me to know. I waved my hand, not wanting to say anything more. Don't blame me. Although I like you, we wouldn't have a good life together. The court is full of officials protecting their own interests and forming factions. If I marry you, your uncle won't help me. But if I marry cousin Warner, your uncle will genuinely cultivate me. Then I wish you a bright future and a meteoric rise. When the emperor heard that I was marrying the 9th prince voluntarily, he was instantly overjoyed. My father was rewarded and quite pleased. He specifically summoned me to lecture me on a few things. I listened respectfully, and then handed him the list of my mother's dowry from years ago, demanding he return it all to me. My father was furious and scolded me for being short-sighted, but he dared not cross me. After waiting for 17 years, I finally got what belonged to me. On my wedding day, Song Yuan stood at the door and murmured, "Cousin Yu." His tone was filled with a sense of loss. With my red veil covering my face, I naturally ignored him. After entering the prince's manor, the imperial edict followed shortly. The 9th prince, Zhao Huaiyu, established his own household at 7. Now at 20, the emperor has finally granted him the title of prince. The title is Jin, implying one as precious as jade, enduring and flourishing forever. It was a double celebration. The prince's manor was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and the sound of firecrackers shook the sky. But in the bridal chamber, it was deathly silent. I lifted the veil myself. At a glance, I saw Zhao Huaiyu leaning against the head of the bed, looking at me with a smile. He is quite tall, and at this moment he wears his wedding robes. They add a touch of profound elegance to his gentle and refined nature. Of all the people I have seen in 17 years, Zhao Huaiyu's appearance is the most exquisite. I am very satisfied. Even though his health is poor, this face is a feast for my eyes. He offered me a faint smile. Was the journey here smooth? I removed the phoenix coronet myself and took a seat at the table beside the bed. It went quite smoothly. Is your highness feeling tired today? He shook his head. I have been lying down all along. How could I be tired? He looked at me with an apologetic expression. Because of my condition, I have wronged you. I didn't feel wronged, but I hadn't expected him to say such considerate words. You are too polite, Your Highness. This is a marriage into a higher status for me. How could I be wrong? He paused. My courtesy name is Huaijin. I am not sure how to address you. Jiang Yue, I have no childhood name. Please feel free to address me as you wish, Your Highness. He nodded slightly and remained silent for a moment. Jiang Yue, feel free to move about the manor as you please. If anything comes up, you may come to me at any time or seek out Eunuch Wang. I nodded. Of course, you are the mistress here. There is no need for formality. If you wish to manage matters, big or small, you may make the decisions yourself. As he finished speaking, he coughed twice, his complexion flushing slightly. I poured some warm tea and handed it to him. He paused and looked at me in surprise. Thank you. He drank the tea with refined movements. As he lowered his eyes, his long lashes cast soft shadows, making him look like delicate white porcelain. Jiang Yue, he stopped before continuing. I may not have much time left, but you need not worry. I will certainly see that you are provided for within 3 years, ensuring you a life of comfort for years to come. I was pleasantly surprised. He said I was the mistress of this household. I, of course, could not take that at face value, yet I inexplicably believed in his sincerity. As far as this marriage goes, for now, I am extremely satisfied. I thought for a moment and asked him, then what can I do for you, Your Highness? Manage the household accounts, handle the domestic affairs, or perhaps provide you with an heir? He looked at me in astonishment, his face suddenly flushing red. There is no need for that. I looked at him, puzzled, wanting to know which one he was rejecting. My days are numbered. Leaving children behind would only cause them to lead lives of hardship. He paused, gradually calmed down, and then lifted his eyes to look at me quietly. Jiang Yue, I do not wish to drag you down either. I wanted to tell him that I had already prepared myself to be a widow, and that I would never remarry. He likely felt a sense of guilt, for he added, otherwise, would you be willing to take charge of the prince's household accounts? It might be a bit tiring, though. I smiled and shook my head. It is enough that Your Highness trusts me. Very well. He immediately had the steward summoned, scheduling me to take over in 3 days. After speaking for a long time, he could no longer hold on and fell into a drowsy sleep. It was only after I returned to my own separate room that I realized Zhao Huaiyu had, from the very beginning, never intended to consummate the marriage. His illness was indeed quite severe. I found some white fabric tucked away at the bottom of a chest and passed the time by cutting it for clothes. My nanny guessed that Zhao Huaiyu might be unable to consummate the marriage due to his physical condition. There was no need to speculate whether he was unable or simply unwilling. It did not matter. My nanny, however, urged me to try again, insisting that I should at least leave behind an heir. I let out a yawn. I had assumed I would be unable to sleep a wink this night, but once I lay down, wrapped in a soft mattress and a fragrant quilt, I fell asleep instantly. I slept until dawn. I went to the palace in the morning. The emperor was busy, and only the empress met with me. She perfunctorily bestowed a jade pot upon me. As I was leaving, I heard the eunuchs whispering to each other. To be treated so coldly by the emperor and empress. I thought the princess consort would make a scene. To think she is so spineless. Even if she wanted to make a scene, she has no standing. This title is just an empty name after all. Eunuch Wang was so angry he wanted to go back and scold them, but I stopped him. They aren't wrong, Eunuch. Please do not be upset. It is truly the case. Eunuch Wang looked at us, caught between laughter and tears. Zhao Huaiyu and I exchanged a glance and burst into laughter together. Returning home the next day was even more casual. I didn't want to tire Zhao Huaiyu out by bringing him along. Yet, he insisted on coming to show me support. Upon entering the Jiang residence, my sisters and relatives were all waiting. They all looked at Zhao Huaiyu as if they were seeing a god among men. Watching them kneel down to pay their respects, I felt even more at ease. Thank you, Your Highness. I helped him into the carriage, his body stiffened, but then it relaxed again. It's only my duty, no need for such formalities with me. I still have to thank you after all, on my own. No matter how hard I tried, I could never make my father kneel to me. On this point, Zhao Huaiyu has a natural advantage. Managing the estate's finances was far more involved than I had imagined. Not to mention the social obligations, just the ledgers for every part of the manor were enough to keep me busy for a while. These accounts look clear at first glance, but once you start auditing them, they're a tangled mess. Are there any areas that are off limits? If not, may I start working on them? Eunuch Wang looked at me in surprise, probably curious about how I intended to go about it. Half a month later, I had the entire management of the estate's internal finances in my hands. By August, Zhao Huaiyu had personally handed over the management of his external affairs to me as well. His various shops, farmlands, tea plantations, and orchards, while scattered and numerous, were finally under my control. His Highness trusts you, but don't overwork yourself. Some things don't need to be scrutinized so closely. When doing work for someone else, how can one be lazy? I tapped on the abacus without even looking up. I live here and have found the life I wanted, so I must repay him as best as I can. My wet nurse nudged me and hurriedly called out toward the door. Your Highness. I went to the door and supported him by the arm. Why are you up? Is there something you need me to do? My 10th brother's son is having his full month celebration. We've been invited. But it's no matter, I can go on my own. I can go with you. I wouldn't be at ease if you went alone. Should we prepare a gift? He looked at the ledger I had been recording, then looked at me with surprise. What? Should we prepare a gift? Then I'll leave that to you. Prince Rui is a year younger than Zhao Huaiyu, but he was granted his own residence and title at 11. The Prince Rui residence is opulent and grand compared to the Prince Jin residence. We are rather modest. The baby was adorable. I took a few looks before chatting casually with the other noblewoman. Suddenly, I heard the princes laughing and joking in a nearby pavilion. Faintly, I could hear them teasing Zhao Huaiyu. I walked toward them and heard Prince Rui talking about medicine. That medicine is potent. I guarantee you'll be capable 7 times a night. The brothers burst into raucous laughter. Zhao Huaiyu's expression had been indifferent, but when he saw me enter, his expression darkened and he said to Prince Rui, "Do not speak nonsense." Prince Rui was relentless. I feigned curiosity and asked, "What medicine?" Zhao Huaiyu, fearing for my dignity, gripped my hand and shook his head, signaling me not to ask. "The secret medicine for 7 times a night that guarantees a son." I put on a look of sudden realization and tucked my arm into Zhao Huaiyu's. "Your Highness, we must have this medicine. I wouldn't believe it if it came from anyone else. But the 10th prince has 3 sons now, so it is highly credible." After I finished speaking, I gently pinched Zhao Huaiyu's hand. His fingers were slender and long, but they were quite cold, so I instinctively warmed them for him. The pavilion went suddenly quiet. Prince Rui's face turned beet red and he said embarrassedly, "I'm not sick, so I have no need for medicine." I glanced at the crown prince out of the corner of my eye and then replied to Prince Rui with an innocent look. "Oh, I see. Then the 10th prince is quite impressive. With 3 sons to his name, he must be full of confidence." I said this for the crown prince to hear. The crown prince only has 1 son. He can't compare to Prince Rui. Therefore, as he drank his tea, his expression turned rather unpleasant. I held Zhao Huaiyu's hand and stood up. "The wind is picking up, my lord. Let's go home." Zhao Huaiyu looked at me with a smile, gave a fitting cough and nodded, saying, "Very well. 9th brother, I'll have someone deliver the medicine to you later. Also, your princess is too shrewish. You should just divorce her." Zhao Huaiyu stopped and looked at Prince Rui quietly. His gaze was as calm as ever, yet for a fleeting moment I caught a chill in his eyes. I returned to the prince's residence with Zhao Huaiyu, and he didn't say a word on the way. A while later, the medicine was actually delivered, a jar of decocted medicine. Prince Rui's personal head steward was there, waiting for Zhao Huaiyu. By the time I returned to the room, Zhao Huaiyu had already finished drinking it. I had intended to scold the Prince Rui residence's steward, but in the next instant, Zhao Huaiyu began vomiting blood. "It is poisoned," Eunuch Wang shouted and immediately ordered the head steward of Prince Rui's residence to be detained. Poisoning a prince is a matter of great consequence. So, I didn't hold back. After causing a scene at the palace, I went straight to the crown prince's residence. "Your Highness, Prince Jin has a gentle temperament. Past jokes were all harmless banter, but this time it was poisoning, a matter of life and death if you do nothing. Then can I not also send someone to kill Prince Ru?" The crown prince looked at me, horrified. I just needed the crown prince to take a stand. There is no reason for those 4 brothers to be united and harmonious while Zhao Huaiyu is the only one pushed aside. If it isn't going to be good, then none of us will have a good time. After I returned to the residence, the royal physician had already left, saying the poison was weak and not fatal. But because Zhao Huaiyu's body is weak, he remained in grave danger. Zhao Huaiyu lay on the bed, his face pale and drained of all color. "If you leave, I will take this revenge for you." As I finished speaking, I actually sensed his fingers move. I called to him a few times, but he didn't respond. "I don't know if the prince will make it through this. Young lady, your life is so bitter." I didn't share my nanny's sentiments after all. I had long prepared myself for widowhood. "Do our best and leave the rest to fate." Zhao Huaiyu didn't wake for 3 days, and the crown prince memorialized against Prince Rui. Once he took the lead, the entire court was filled with petitions against Prince Rui. Prince Rui was given 100 lashes for conspiring to murder Prince Jin. He was demoted to a secondary ranked prince and banished to his fief in the northwest. Before he left, he charged into Prince Jin's residence. "Is there something you need? Tell the 9th prince he is worthless, but I would never kill him. I don't do things that don't benefit me." me. If it truly wasn't you, then the person who poisoned him killed 2 birds with 1 stone. They framed you and poisoned Prince Jin at the same time. I know who it is, and I won't let them get away with it." He stormed off in a rage. If only this were all just a bitter pill scheme by Zhao Huaiyu. He could get rid of Prince Rui without lifting a finger, while simultaneously making an enemy of another prince. Unfortunately, Zhao Huaiyu is just too simple-minded. "I had them prepare the funeral hall. The imperial physician said Zhao Huaiyu could pass at any moment. I sat by his bed through the night to keep him company. The weather has been quite warm lately, so I changed into lighter white clothing. After 2 days of holding out, Zhao Huaiyu didn't die, but I couldn't hold on any longer. When I woke up in the morning, I was actually lying right beside him, yet I had absolutely no recollection of how I got into bed. As I opened my eyes, I met Zhao Huayu's smiling gaze. I made an excuse to find the doctor and scrambled out of bed. I immediately ordered everyone to pack up the funeral items. The prince has turned disaster into good fortune. His blessings are boundless. My wet nurse was the happiest because I didn't have to become a widow. Zhao Huaiyu had to go to the palace to offer his thanks. He seemed in decent spirits yesterday, but this morning he looked several shades paler. Can you walk? I can manage, however I may have to trouble you to lean on me, my lady. It is no trouble, it is my duty. I helped him into the carriage and covered him with a blanket. As the carriage began to jolt, he looked like he might collapse. If you don't mind, you could lean on my shoulder. Would that be all right? I nodded. He slowly leaned his head onto my right shoulder, and I wrapped my left arm around him to steady him. Are you tired, my lady? I am not. It is my duty. He gave a soft M. Inside the palace, the emperor saw him and personally called for the imperial physicians to examine him. Prince Rui's mother arrived with an aggressive air, but upon seeing Zhao Huaiyu hanging on by a thread, her momentum withered away. Zhao Huaiyu is just too soft-hearted. This time, the emperor bestowed many gifts upon him. On our way out of the palace, we saw the crown prince. I hope my situation hasn't caused you any trouble, your highness. I don't blame the 10th brother. He has always been unruly since he was a child. You are too kind-hearted, which is why you've let him become so lawless. Zhao Huaiyu smiled with a touch of embarrassment. The crown prince looked at him with an expression of frustration and shook his head before leaving. I held Zhao Huayu's hand, half supporting him, and glanced back at the crown prince. The emperor had 16 sons, but only 5 survived to adulthood. The carriage was cushioned for the ride back, and as I helped him inside, I said, "It will be quite bumpy. You can rest your head on my lap if you'd like." "Is that all right?" "It is nothing. It's my duty." As his head rested on my lap, the atmosphere in the carriage suddenly became somewhat delicate. My own feelings grew complicated as well. "My lady?" "Yes. Is something bothering you?" He lifted his eyes to look at me, and I looked down at him in return. "What does my lady like?" "Like a hobby. Colors, accessories, food preferences." He listed quite a few things. "I don't have high demands for worldly possessions, so I answered casually. I prefer light colors. Accessories don't really matter. I don't wear many on a daily basis. As for food, I'm not picky." He watched me the whole time I was speaking, listening very attentively. I looked away. "Light colors. I recall there is fabric from Jiang Yue in the storehouse. My lady will surely like it." I didn't decline and thanked him. When the items were delivered, I was truly startled. 12 bolts of fabric, all in various shades of light colors and incredibly precious. The headpieces, ranging from gold to jade and from intricate to elegant, covered an entire daybed. I looked at him in astonishment. A smile flickered in his eyes. "I've kept them for a long time thanks to you. They can see the light of day once more." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I had thought Zhao Huaiyu wasn't well off, but it seems he hasn't been living in poverty at all. Before bed, among my dowry, I found a bolt of men's fabric wanting to make him a long autumn robe. So I took the fabric and went to find him. I wonder if the prince likes this shade of blue. He had been lying down but sat up, raising his eyebrows as he looked at the fabric. For me, I didn't mention the earlier gifts, acting as if I knew nothing. "If the prince doesn't mind, I would like to make you a garment." "You will make it yourself?" I nodded. "I certainly don't mind." He got off the bed and stood before me, his cheeks slightly flushed. "Do you need to take measurements?" I paused. In truth, there was no need to measure. I could have just asked the estate seamstress. "Then wait a moment. I will go get a measuring tape." "You're too kind." When I returned, he had taken off his outer robe, wearing only a thin undergarment, lost in thought as he looked at the fabric. I pulled myself together and began to take his measurements. What is the prince thinking about? His tone was somewhat wistful. Has autumn arrived? I measured his shoulders, replying casually, "Yes, the Mid-Autumn Festival hasn't even arrived yet, but one can already feel the chill at night. No wonder it feels cold at night." "Is it cold?" I looked up at him. "Would you like me to add another quilt for you?" "The quilt is already quite thick. Adding more would be uncomfortable and heavy." I glanced toward his bed. Problems must be solved. If you don't want more blankets on top, shall we add another mattress pad? I was wrapping my arms around his waist, leaning in to read the measurements. Suddenly, I looked up and met his eyes, and my heart skipped a beat. He looked at me with a faint smile. I felt as though his smile held some hidden meaning, so I stepped back a few paces. He seemed not to notice my reaction and merely asked calmly, "How many days will it take to finish the garment, madam? Would 3 days be enough?" He nodded with a smile. "That will do. Then I shall head back. You get some rest early." I held the fabric and stepped out, and he walked me to the door. The moonlight was bright, draped over the world like silver. It was beautiful. He followed me out. "It is cold out here." "It is fine. I'll see you back to your courtyard and then come back. I won't catch a cold." He didn't walk fast, and the path that usually took a few steps took us 3 times as long. Once I arrived, I felt uneasy about him walking back alone, so I had to see him back. On the way back, I suddenly burst into laughter. I think this back and forth escorting is a bit childish, and I belatedly just realized it. After the garment was finished, Zhao Huaiyu wore it immediately. "It is a bit hot today. Would you like to change into something thinner? I fear the cold. This thickness is just right." He smoothed the hem of his robe and stood before the mirror, looking quite satisfied. "You are truly skilled, madam." For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. "What is it?" He leaned down slightly to meet my gaze. "Are you not feeling well?" I shook my head, poured him some tea, and took the chance to change the subject. "I heard the emperor has taken in a Taoist sorcerer who can conjure spells, calculate fate, and even refine immortality pills." "Yes, his surname is Ma. They say he is a traveler from overseas, though I have yet to see how great his abilities truly are. I find these Taoist sorcerers to be rather mysterious. The emperor is only 46 this year. Is he already starting to seek immortality?" On the day of the Mid-Autumn Festival, Zhao Huaiyu was still wearing the garment I made for him. We arrived at the palace first, but the crown prince was not there. The emperor was currently conversing with the Prince of Jin and the Taoist Master Ma. The Prince of Jin is a very suspicious man. One must speak to him in circles. On the way back, I said thoughtfully, "Was it the Prince of Jin who introduced Taoist Master Ma?" That was quite transparent of him. In this matter, the Prince of Jin was not very clever. I had only meant it as a casual remark, but Zhao Huaiyu seemed quite interested. "How so?" My hand, which was pouring the tea, paused, and I asked with a smile, "May I speak freely?" "Of course, it is just the two of us. Actually, from my perspective, the best arrangement regarding Taoist Master Ma has to do with you." He paused. "I suspect that Taoist Master Mei is an old acquaintance of yours, and you set a trap to introduce him to Prince Jin. Afterward, Prince Jin recommended him to the emperor. Prince Jin thus gained a powerful ally and is now locked in a stalemate with the crown prince, neither able to best the other." Zhao Huaiyu stopped drinking his tea and looked at me with some surprise. "When 2 tigers fight, one is bound to be injured regardless of the outcome. It works to your benefit." I finished speaking and looked at him with a smile. He looked at me intently. "That benefit is truly quite significant. What do I know of court matters? Just some idle thoughts, that is all." Zhao Huaiyu chuckled and shook his head. "You have great insight. Prince Jin has enough strength. He isn't afraid of being seen through at all." Zhao Huaiyu nodded slightly and said with satisfaction, "My wife is truly wise." I shook my head and laughed. "My lord keeps complimenting me. It makes me feel guilty." He smiled, then suddenly leaned closer to me and asked in a low voice, "If I were to vie for the throne, would you be afraid?" I was startled. My heart skipped a beat, initially believing his words were true. But then I thought about how these past few months he has been with me. We have barely been apart. When would he have had the time to plot for the throne? What is there to fear? If you want to do it, do it. If you win, you're above everyone. If you lose, it is just death." Zhao Huaiyu looked at me steadily, suddenly reached out to touch my head and said softly, "My wife is truly a heroine among women." I laughed along with him. Over the past few months, Zhao Huaiyu and I have gotten along quite harmoniously. Daily chores, the farm, the shops, and the undercurrents of the court, everything was a topic of conversation for us. I often thought, if his health were good, and we lived like this, though it wouldn't be as quiet and pleasant as my life in widowhood, it would still be very good. At court, the situation with Taoist Master Ma had some deviations from what I thought, but the direction the events took was exactly as I had expected. A few days later, while we were having dinner, Eunuch Wang mentioned court affairs. The emperor is now spending all his time with Taoist Master Ma studying the art of immortality. He is completely charmed by Taoist Master Ma and Prince Jin. I raised an eyebrow and looked at Zhao Huaiyu. Zhao Huaiyu served me some soup and said with a smile, "If my wife has something to say, please feel free. If our family is not participating at all, then we must remain neutral to avoid being held accountable by whoever wins in the future. Our family." He raised his eyebrows, the smile in his eyes surging to the corners of his eyes. I didn't understand what he was so happy about. "Very well, I will listen to my wife." One day, while Zhao Huaiyu and I were playing chess at home, The Crown Prince arrived uninvited. The Crown Prince looked at our chessboard and said with envy, "How carefree the ninth brother is, spending an entire hour on one game of chess. The princess's skill is on par with mine. This game has been intense for 2 hours." Zhao Huaiyu, pretending not to grasp the Crown Prince's meaning, asked innocently, "Does your highness have any brilliant advice to break this deadlock? I don't have your leisure and elegance. Come with me. I have something to ask you." The Crown Prince signaled for Zhao Huaiyu to change locations with him. "Look, this game." Zhao Huaiyu looked troubled, as if he were reluctant to leave. "Why not talk here? The princess is not an outsider." The Crown Prince furrowed his brows and glanced at me. Seeing that I had no intention of leaving, he had no choice but to sit down and get straight to the point. "I've noticed your health has been improving lately, so..." Zhao Huaiyu finished the Crown Prince's sentence, taking the opportunity to praise me. "It is all thanks to the princess's excellent care." Naturally, I understood his intention, so I smiled and said, "You are too kind, your highness. I am merely doing my duty." The Crown Prince's brows knitted even tighter. "Mobe has had snow for 10 days straight. A disaster is imminent. Ninth brother, this is a major matter. I don't trust anyone else. You should go." Zhao Huaiyu pointed to my last move. "Princess, I would like to take back that move." As he said this, he reached for a piece. I tapped his hand. "Your highness, there is no such thing as taking back a move in chess. Please put it back. Just one move, not even one." He put the piece back with a sigh of resignation. Very well, I shall listen to the princess." Only then did he look up at the Crown Prince. "What was your highness just saying?" The Crown Prince stood up abruptly, losing his temper. "Look at yourself now, before when your health was poor. It was natural to rest, but now that you are better, you still remain stagnant. People say you married well and that the princess has helped your health improve, but in my opinion you should divorce her. Ninth brother, beauty is a dangerous distraction." I raised an eyebrow. Could it be that in others' eyes I am a femme fatale who led Zhao Huaiyu astray? This perspective is quite novel. I have never heard it before. I didn't feel much, but Zhao Huaiyu's expression darkened. "Your highness, if there is nothing else, please leave. My health is poor, so I will not see you out." The Crown Prince seemed stunned, pointing at him in anger before pointing at me. "You obtuse woman." Zhao Huaiyu suddenly overturned the chessboard. "Samoan, see the Crown Prince out." The Crown Prince had likely never seen Zhao Huaiyu lose his temper. He was truly shocked. After the Crown Prince left, Zhao Huaiyu sat in silence, clutching a chess piece for a long time without saying a word. "Your highness." His aura dissipated, and he looked up at me. "Those were baseless remarks. Don't take them to heart, my lady." I don't mind, but his reaction just now was completely unexpected. Is he angry because the Crown Prince called me a fool? I was quite surprised. I couldn't fathom what he was thinking. The Crown Prince didn't return after that scene, but Prince Jin came once. That visit didn't go very well either. He left in a huff. With two tigers fighting, even Prince Jin, who never cared for court politics, became a focus for them to court support from. It seems this power struggle will soon have a clear winner. 7 or 8 days later, Zhao Huaiyu suddenly asked me, "His Majesty is going to the Nanshan winter hunt in a few days. Would you like to go and see?" Upon hearing this, I looked up at him, studying the expression on his face. "It must be quite interesting, right? Let's go and have a look." But shortly before we were due to leave, Zhao Huaiyu's condition worsened again. He coughed for several nights and his dosage of medicine was increased. Regarding the medicine before bed, Steward Wang insisted that I be the one to deliver it. I had a lot on my plate, so I hesitated. "Could you have my nursemaid deliver it instead? It is just delivering medicine. Surely that wouldn't matter, would it?" Steward Wang spoke to me with a grave expression. "Each ingredient in this medicine is extremely precious. It is most appropriate for you to deliver it, my lady." I couldn't believe this. If not my nursemaid, I had young maids in my quarters. Does it really have to be me? Besides, do you not remember the incident with the poison medicine last time? Please say no more. I will go. I knocked on the door. Zhao Huaiyu was sitting at the table carving a seal. Seeing me arrive, he smiled and said, "Why have you come?" I didn't want to come, but I couldn't stand Steward Wang's alarmist talk. "The medicine is here. Will you drink it while it's hot, your highness?" "My hands are dirty, so just set it aside for now. The dust from your carving is flying around this table. If it lands in the medicine, it will be filthy." He looked at me in a predicament. I asked him hesitantly, "In that case, why don't you go wash your hands? Before this seal is finished, it cannot be exposed to moisture." I didn't understand why a piece of stone couldn't be exposed to moisture, but I didn't dare speak out of turn. "Then, shall I feed it to you?" Surely he doesn't actually want me to feed him. "Then I shall trouble you." He turned his body to face me, his face full of expectation. I froze, feeling utterly bewildered. I couldn't help but feel that Zhao Huaiyu was gradually becoming a bit strange. I fed him a spoonful of medicine. He swallowed it obediently and smiled at me. "Is the medicine sweet? You're smiling so happily." "It is." His eyes curved slightly. He was clearly very happy. "I don't understand. Why would you be happy about taking medicine? Drink your medicine and get some sleep, your highness." Highness. He responded somewhat reluctantly, and with the medicine still in his mouth, he gestured toward the seal. Does my lady like this piece of bloodstone? I took a look. I didn't feel anything in particular, but I went along with him. I like it. He became happy again. As I set the bowl down ready to return, he patted the chair beside him. My lady, sit here and help me pass things. I'm too busy to free up my hands. I haven't finished my own work yet. The items are right beside his hand. How could he possibly be too busy to reach them? I sat down beside him and stared blankly. Oh. No matter what Zhao Huaiyu does, his movements are always fluid and pleasing to the eye. The winter hunt happens every year, but this is the first time Zhao Huaiyu has attended. The Nanshan hunting grounds are not far after a day's journey. We arrived that evening. The temporary palace isn't large, and the courtyard assigned to us was extremely small with only one proper bedroom. I will sleep on the daybed. That evening, the temporary palace was quite lively, and we joined the emperor for dinner. We also watched singing and dancing, and it was nearly 10 o'clock by the time we returned. Zhao Huaiyu, wrapped in his quilt, sneezed twice in a row. I sat up and looked at him. Are you cold, my lord? Are you not cold, my lady? He frowned, clearly shivering from the cold. I wanted to say no, but knowing Zhao Huaiyu as I do, I knew he would have more to say. If you don't mind, my lady, perhaps we could stack our two quilts together. That might be warmer. Cough, cough. I fear if I freeze all night, my illness will only worsen tomorrow. I reflexively rubbed my brow, grabbed my quilt, and went over. Zhao Huaiyu has been acting increasingly strange. We lay down side by side. The person beside me was very warm. The night was thick and impenetrable, with only the sound of his shallow breathing nearby. I turned over, facing away from him. Do you feel a bit warmer, my lady? I never felt cold to begin with. And how about you, my lord? Much warmer. It is all thanks to you being here, my lady. I rubbed my brow again. Unable to hold back, I turned to look at him. My lord, are you trying to get me to bear your heir now? 5 months into our marriage, my initial intention remains unchanged. He looked at me intently. If I can make it until next summer, could we discuss this matter then? Next summer, that is still 7 months away. I nodded and agreed. But if he doesn't want me to have an heir, why has he been acting so strange? Go to sleep. He patted my back. I was startled to realize his hand had at some point slipped outside the quilt, wrapping around me. This is warmer, he said flatly, then closed his eyes. Go to sleep, my lady. We must rise early tomorrow. I frowned, closed my eyes, and fell asleep. I woke up in the morning to find myself in his arms. By the time I had finished washing up, he was already awake and smiled as he looked at me. When did you wake, my lady? Did you sleep well? I slept well. How about you, your highness? Did you find it uncomfortable? Not at all. I slept very soundly. I looked at his slightly bloodshot eyes and raised an eyebrow. In the morning, everyone moved to the hunting grounds. The princes and dukes of the royal family were gathered together, and with the sound of a gong, led by the crown prince and Prince Jin respectively, the two groups charged into the hunting grounds. I was in the tent drinking tea. Zhao Huaiyu was in good spirits, helping me roast chestnuts. I had just eaten one chestnut when someone outside suddenly called out to him. Immediately, the curtain was lifted and a very radiant woman walked in. The woman was about 17 or 18 years old. With her hair styled in a high bun, holding a horsewhip, she walked in looking like a gorgeous flower. Ninth brother. Swinging her whip, she sat down boldly across from us. I'm back. Zhao Huaiyu looked at her and smiled slightly. The woman pulled a stool over to sit beside Zhao Huaiyu and wrapped her arms around his. It is so good that you didn't die. I brought you 1,000-year-old ginseng this time. The doctor said it is the best thing for you to eat. Zhao Huaiyu calmly pushed her hand away and turned to introduce her to me. My lady, this is Princess Cheng Yi from the Prince of Huainan's manor. So she was Song Xiaoxiao. The Prince of Huainan had performed great meritorious service during the reign of Emperor Dezong and was granted a title. Now in its third generation, Song Xiaoxiao grew up in the capital and was very familiar with several of the princes. There was even talk before that she might become the Princess of Rue or the Princess of Ning in the future. I had never heard that she and Zhao Huaiyu were close. After the introduction, Song Xiaoxiao sized me up, raising her heroic arched brows. It is you? Recalling something, she pointed at me and asked Zhao Huaiyu, isn't this the person who scolded the abbot at Fahua Temple that day? No, you remembered wrong. I was a bit surprised. I really did scold someone at Fahua Temple. After the Lantern Festival this year, I went to pay for the lamp oil for my mother, but unexpectedly, the lamp was blown out. I was furious at the time and pointed at the abbot and scolded him for a long time. In the end, the abbot apologized to me, but I didn't renew the lamp. Could there have been someone else in the temple that day? Did I remember wrong? Song Xiaoxiao wasn't sure either. She stopped mentioning it and went to hook Zhao Huaiyu's arm again. Ninth brother, let's go hunting, shall we? My horsemanship is not skilled enough. Zhao Huaiyu stood up and poured her a cup of tea to hold. I wanted to laugh, so I lowered my head to eat chestnuts. I'm skilled, you can sit in front of me. Song Xiaoxiao wanted to grab Zhao Huaiyu's hand, but since she was holding tea, she had to give up. My archery has improved again. Come and take a look. Zhao Huaiyu looked at me. The princess is being kind. Your Highness, you should go. Zhao Huaiyu suddenly moved over and said into my ear, "It is windy today, and I'm ill. How can you let me go?" I looked at him, and he nodded at me earnestly. I burst into laughter for a moment. He looked like a child. "You don't want to go out yet. You make me be the one to refuse." I had no choice but to say to Song Xiaoxiao, "My sincere thanks, princess, but the prince is currently unwell and shouldn't be out in the wind. Perhaps another day." Song Xiaoxiao looked at Zhao Huaiyu in astonishment. I listened to my wife. He actually seemed to quite enjoy being under my thumb. "Ninth brother, why have you become so different since you got married?" Song Xiaoxiao frowned. "You weren't like this before." Zhao Huaiyu acted as if he didn't grasp the meaning behind her words and even offered her some advice. "You should get married early too. You'll be different after you're married." Song Xiaoxiao looked at me, then at Zhao Huaiyu, set down her teacup, and left. I bit into a chestnut, watching Zhao Huaiyu with a faint, amused smile. "Why must you be like that, my prince? Horseback archery is no fun. It's much more comfortable staying here by the fire with you." I laughed and tilted my head to look at him. He poked at the charcoal. His voice sounded as if it were coming from a distance, thin and ethereal, tinged with a sense of loss. "As for you, my wife, why were you so quick to agree? Should I not have agreed? Understood, from now on, I will know how to act." He looked at me deeply, appearing slightly displeased again. Eunuch Wang entered and said in a hushed tone, "Your Highness, 2 people are missing from the Crown Prince's group. His Majesty requests your presence to fill the vacancy." I was taken aback and said in surprise, "The prince must go." Eunuch Wang nodded with a solemn expression. "An imperial decree. I must go." Zhao Huaiyu handed me a warm chestnut. "Don't worry, my wife, I will be back soon." I was still worried. He had said he wasn't skilled at mounted archery. In that vast, snow-covered forest, danger lurked everywhere. Is my wife worried about me? Of course I was worried about him. It was such a strange question to ask. He began to laugh. "Then bring more men with you." He nodded, took one last look at me, and walked out the door. Zhao Huaiyu left at the hour of the dragon, and now 3 hours had already passed. The sky was gradually growing dark. The sound of hoofbeats came from outside. The Prince of Jin and the others had returned. The Crown Prince and the Prince have not returned yet. Have people been sent to look for them? Eunuch Wang looked at the weather and whispered, "They have been sent. It looks like a blizzard is coming soon." Half an hour later, they still hadn't returned, but the snow was falling harder and harder. The rescue party had returned once, only to leave again with even more men. Song Xiaoxiao came by and demanded of me, "Why didn't you stop him? An imperial command cannot be disobeyed. You really are. If something happens to him, you'll be a widow for the rest of your life. I'm going to look for him. Are you coming or not?" I shook my head. "It's no use if I go. If I get lost in those woods, I'll only be more trouble." But in my heart, I still feel some regret. I should have stopped him earlier. He wasted his kindness on you. Song Xiaoxiao lashed her whip and rode off into the forest in a fury. An hour later, she was carried back, covered in blood. I stood outside the tent with an umbrella. The dark, imposing forest was deathly silent. It grew later and later, but they still hadn't been found. The Crown Prince's mansion sent many men, and even Prince Jin went back out with his own. The Emperor was furious and ordered troops to be deployed for the search. Do we have anyone we can use? No. Does the princess wish to go? Never mind. I'll just wait here. Eunuch Wang nodded, looking disappointed. That night, I huddled by the fireplace and drifted off to sleep without realizing it. When I woke, it was already light out. My anxiety only deepened. Eunuch Wang came in draped in the bitter cold. I stood up. "Have they been found?" His expression was grave as he nodded. I grabbed onto the back of a chair. "The Crown Prince is dead." My head felt like it was buzzing. "And the prince?" "The prince was carried back. He is barely holding on. The imperial physicians are attending to him." I ran to the room next door. There were many physicians inside, and the emperor looked like an aged, weary lion. Pacing anxiously, the hair that had been raven black just yesterday had turned white. They were doing everything they could to save Zhao Huaiyu. "The crown prince is dead, and of the 19 men who accompanied him, all but Zhao Huaiyu are dead." "What is his condition?" The chief of the Imperial Medical Academy fell to his knees, his voice trembling. "The prince was already frail to begin with, and now he has 2 sword wounds. Along with the effects of freezing in the cold all night, I fear he may not make it." My heart sank instantly. The next day, the imperial procession returned to the capital, carrying the crown prince's remains and the unconscious Prince Jin. They were investigating who exactly had set the trap for the crown prince and Prince Jin. Each day as the physicians came and went, I moved all my work into his room. No matter the outcome, I would guard his mansion for him. "Your Highness, Minister Zhang is here." "Father." I went to see my father. He looked anxious, yet he maintained his composed, stern presence. Footsteps. Standing by my father's side, Song Yuanzheng in his official robe stared at me intently. Footsteps. Father asked how Zhao Huaiyu was doing, and I answered him truthfully. Father signaled for Song Yuan to step outside and keep watch. I have come today because there is something I need you to do, I replied in a calm voice. Do you realize that now that the crown prince is dead, the political landscape of the court has been completely overturned? I didn't speak, for I knew he didn't need an answer from me. Many people now suspect that Prince Jin harmed the crown prince, but Prince Jin didn't do it. I looked at my father in confusion and asked, "And so, there is a task I need you to do. Once it is done, I will personally see you off to the south. Your maternal grandparents moved there long ago under their protection and your uncles. You will be safe. Life there will surely be more comfortable than it is in Liangcheng." So, my maternal family moved to the south. He had refused to reveal a single word about it for so many years. If there was anyone left in this world I cared for, it was only my grandmother and my uncle. "What is it you want me to do, father?" He handed me a letter. "Take this, bring it to the palace and give it to His Majesty. Say you found it in the prince's study. Beg His Majesty to seek justice for the prince." I didn't need to open the letter to know what was written inside. It was most likely a forgery of Prince Ning's handwriting addressed to Zhao Huaiyu, plotting the assassination of the crown prince during the winter hunt. In short, he wanted me to use this letter to identify Prince Ning as the culprit. So, father was supporting Prince Jin all along. Father, didn't you once support the crown princes? The crown prince is gone. One must learn to adapt. Adapt? What a fine word. I will consider it and give you an answer tomorrow. Your uncle has been out of office for 20 years. If you help Prince Jin, he can help your uncle return to his former position. But if you remain stubborn, there is no one who can help you. Father wore an earnest expression. Father left, and Song Yuan stepped back a few paces. Cousin Yue, listen to uncle. He wouldn't harm you. Once you're in the south, you'll still have me. I raised my hand to cut him off and signaled for him to leave. The prince won't last more than a few days. You must plan ahead. A wise bird chooses the tree it perches upon. You are a smart person, you understand. Yes, Song Yuan knew I had always wanted to find my uncle. I waved my hand to signal him to go. I knew exactly what I was facing. If Zhao Huaiyu did not pull through, the crown prince's death would remain a mystery. No matter how much the crown prince's faction stirs things up, without concrete evidence, His Majesty would not be willing to sacrifice another son. The end result would surely be a struggle between Prince Jin and Prince Ning. I returned to my room, and Zhao Huaiyu was still unconscious. I took out the morning clothes again and finished sewing the sleeve I hadn't completed before. Eunuch Wang stood to the side, casting glances at me from time to time. The next day, His Majesty summoned me to the palace. The Empress had grown very thin and lacked her former elegance. She stared at me intensely and asked, "Some say you possess a letter?" Everyone in the room turned to look at me. His Majesty the Empress, Prince Jin, Prince Ning, and several officials I did not recognize. I knew that if I produced this letter, Prince Ning would surely die. As for Zhao Huaiyu, he is going to die anyway. Whether he is a co-conspirator or merely an innocent bystander, it makes no difference to him. I looked at these people with their various expressions and said coldly, "What letter? I have no letter." After I said this, I saw Prince Ning's legs buckle. He nearly collapsed to the floor. Prince Jin's eyes widened, suppressing his fury. As for the emperor, he was frowning. The empress's expression was quite intriguing. She gave me a long, deep look. Upon returning to the manor, Eunuch Wang greeted me, his face brimming with uncontrollable joy. "My lady, you've returned. Are you cold? Do you need anything?" "I am neither hungry nor cold. Shut the manor gates. From this moment on, no one is allowed to enter except for the royal physicians." "Very well, as you wish." I looked at the unconscious Zhao Huaiyu and heaved a deep sigh. When did it start? Why was I no longer looking forward to a life of widowhood? When the dream I'd held for over a decade was finally within reach, I didn't feel a thing. At night, as I rested on the chaise, I suddenly felt someone watching me. I opened my eyes in shock and met Zhao Huaiyu's familiar gaze. He lifted a corner of the quilt and patted the space beside him. "My lady, I am cold. Shall we sleep together?" Hearing his voice made my nose sting with emotion. I busied myself with brightening the lamp, using the movement to brush away my sorrow. "Your Highness, should I not call for the royal physician? With you here, I need no one else." He was the patient, so he had the final say. I could only slip into his bed. He lay on his side watching me, his eyes brimming with a warmth that wouldn't fade. "Is your Highness happy to have survived this brush with death?" "No. I am happy that when I woke up there was a light by the bed, and you in the room." I paused for a moment. "You've had a hard time lately." He reached out to tuck the quilt around me, his eyes falling on the morning clothes I had finished mending. "It was not hard. As long as I didn't have to wear these, everything was worth it." I thought, these dresses really could be dyed now. After all, Zhao Huaiyu was a man of great fortune. He only watched me smiling gently, his gaze as soft as the moonlight outside the window. "Sleep now." He patted me lightly. Those were the last words left in my ears. I had no dreams that night, sleeping deeply. Zhao Huaiyu went to the palace early in the morning. This time, he didn't ask me to accompany him. I don't know what he said, but the matter of the crown prince's murder became a cold case. What surprised me even more was that the empress actually held Zhao Huaiyu and wept. After lunch, Zhao Huaiyu returned by palanquin. He brought back many rewards and precious medicinal herbs. Closing the door, I asked him, "Is the empress intending to groom you now that she has lost the crown prince?" If one truly wishes to seize the throne, aligning with the empress's faction certainly offers better odds, but it would bring endless trouble in the future. Most importantly, I don't believe now is the best time. We should let Prince Jin and Prince Ning exhaust each other first. Furthermore, Prince Rui is still out in the provinces, just waiting for his chance. Zhao Huaiyu set down his teacup and turned back to look at me. That is her thinking, not mine. My health is poor. I only wish to stay home and keep my wife company. I pointed at the skirts I had dyed that morning. "Does your highness like these colors?" I had dyed all my mourning clothes into a variety of colors. They were now hanging in the courtyard, vibrant and full of life. Zhao Huaiyu's expression turned to one of surprise. Then he burst into laughter. "They are beautiful, though you went to quite a lot of trouble for them, my lady. Thank you, your highness, for gifting me these beautiful skirts." Zhao Huaiyu laughed even more heartily. In the afternoon, my father came to see me, but I refused to meet him. A day later, a letter arrived saying Lady Jiang was ill and asking me to return. His Highness is also ill, and I cannot leave his side. I handed the steward 2 caddies of osmanthus cake I had bought in town. "Please give my regards to her ladyship." The steward's face shifted through several colors before he turned and left, grieving. Zhao Huaiyu took my hand and began to warm it for me. "Why didn't you go back, my lady? It isn't worth it." Zhao Huaiyu was taken aback and asked me in a whisper beside my ear, "In that case, am I worth it?" I glanced at him. He gives me no airs, yet he has gradually become warm and attentive toward me. I didn't quite understand his intentions. Is his health truly failing? But I decided I would not ask a third time about the matter of an heir. "Would you like to go to Jiangnian, my lady?" While we were having dinner, Zhao Huaiyu suddenly brought this up. I looked at him, startled. "I know your maternal relatives are there. If you wish to go, I will accompany you." I didn't ask him how he knew I wanted to find my uncle. I set down my chopsticks and asked him very seriously, "Are you not joking, your highness?" How could I joke about matters concerning my wife? "I want to go." He patted my head and said softly, "Very well then, we shall go to Jiangnian, and I too shall meet your family as your ugly husband." I shot him a look. By the 3rd month, the struggle between Prince Ning and Prince Jin at court was inseparable. With the support of the Empress's faction, Prince Ning pushed Prince Jin into a corner several times. Right in the middle of their chaotic turmoil, Zhao Huaiyu and I leisurely traveled to Jiangnian. Spring in Jiangnian was truly beautiful. In early April, I saw my grandmother and my uncle. Naturally, we cried, and my grandmother led me into her room to give me the dowry she had prepared for me. "I began preparing this when you were just a child. I never expected your marriage to be so hurried. There wasn't even time to send it over. I see the prince treats you very well. You must continue to live happily with him. Live your own lives and do not worry about us." I choked up and promised that I would. My uncle and cousins all hold Zhao Huaiyu in high regard. We traveled to many places. These were the most comfortable and joyful months of my life. In the 10th month, we set off to return to the capital. On the journey back, I had some free time and began tailoring clothes for Zhao Huaiyu. "Rest a while. I already have plenty of clothes to wear. Your highness has shown me such great kindness. I have no way to repay you, so I can only do what is within my power." He sighed and surprisingly set up paper, ink, and brushes to paint me. "My lady has shown me such great kindness that I have no way to repay you either. Let me paint a portrait of you instead." But what he painted was a scene of us boating together. The two of us are leaning against each other looking at the scenery. Our silhouettes are graceful and light, filled with endless affection. Days slipped by slowly in such quiet leisure. It happened so fast it caught me off guard. Winter had arrived and snow began to fall outside. Just as we were about to reach the capital, we received news. Prince Ning was severely injured, and his survival was uncertain. Rumor had it that Prince Jin was the one who sent people to strike him. A situation where Prince Jin had sole control had officially begun. Song Yuan married my second sister. He wasn't sent to the Jiangnan region, but remained as a 4th-rank capital official. Given his age and seniority, this was undoubtedly a successful career path. My father was promoted to chief counselor and granted the title of grand preceptor to the crown prince. I don't know when, but rumors began to circulate that Zhao Huaiyu was impotent. It was said that because of this, he had remained childless a year and a half into his marriage. The rumors grew increasingly wild. Yet the Jin prince's estate remained entirely calm. My second sister heard I had returned and came to the estate in person to see me. She brought 2 caddies of osmanthus cake toward the estate, and wore a faint smile on her lips. My second sister poked her head into the inner chamber and said in surprise, "So the prince's estate is this dilapidated too? This vanity table is damaged. Why do you still use it?" "I'm used to it. Are you planning to give me a new one?" My second sister's expression stiffened. She took a sip of tea and changed the subject. "This fabric of yours is also from last year. Didn't you go to Jiang Yue? Why didn't you buy a whole boatload and ship it back?" I served tea as a hint for her to leave and stopped looking at her. I was only focused on being lovey-dovey with the prince and didn't think about these worldly possessions. My second sister chuckled slightly, patting her own abdomen. "Oh, I forgot to tell you, sister, I'm 3 months pregnant. You should work hard too." My second sister spoke triumphantly, surrounded by her maids, and left. In the blink of an eye, the new year approached and Zhao Huaiyu suddenly became busy, leaving in the morning and returning at night. I didn't ask him what he was busy with because I was very busy myself. On New Year's Eve, the palace held a reunion dinner. At the dinner table, Prince Jin was in high spirits. But the emperor looked much older, his eyes were dull and showed signs of illness. I heard that this past year the emperor had been very dedicated to practicing alchemy and was obsessed with elixirs day and night. After the meal, Zhao Huaiyu and I walked back to the estate, and just as we arrived, suddenly a group of imperial guards came from behind, pushing us and shouting, "By order of the emperor, the Jin prince's estate is temporarily under the control of the imperial guards. Without a decree from the palace, no one is allowed in or out." I looked at Zhao Huaiyu. It was clearly father and son acting with filial piety during dinner. How could we be under house arrest in the blink of an eye? "Your Highness, has something happened to the emperor?" "I don't think the emperor has any reason to do this. The only person capable of such a thing is Prince Jin. So something must have happened to the emperor after we left the palace." "It's fine, don't be afraid." Zhao Huaiyu took my hand and said with a smile, "No matter who it is, we just need to comply." I frowned and said nothing. This night was destined to be filled with bloodshed. I couldn't sleep, but Zhao Huaiyu slept perfectly well. Before dawn, I called someone over to ask. "The emperor collapsed last night with only the empress and Prince Jin present. The emperor's fate is still unknown, but the sun is rising, so we'll know soon." Snow began to fall. It was the first day of the Lunar New Year, usually a time for family reunions and joy. But this year it was draped in silence everywhere. I pointed to the sky and stood up. "The funeral bell, the emperor has passed away." What I cared more about was who had won. "I'll go take a look. You stay in the manor, don't see anyone who comes, and don't go out either." My heart skipped a beat, and I promised him solemnly. I waited in the manor for a day and a night. At night, fire broke out in the palace, the flames lighting up the sky. I called for Eunuch Wang. "Is the prince alone in the palace? Is anyone protecting him?" Eunuch Wang shook his head. I took a dagger from the drawer and tucked it into my sleeve. "Gather the servants, we are heading into the palace." Eunuch Wang's eyes shone bright as he turned to follow me. "My lady, are you really going to the palace? It's very dangerous inside." I stepped toward the door. If one lives in fear, one might as well not be human. In truth, I was terrified. Reason told me that my going was useless, but I went out anyway. I had to see for myself, even if it meant death. We had to see each other one last time. Eunuch Wang's footsteps were very light. "My lady, oh my lady, if you are truly going, then this servant shall accompany you." I stopped and looked at him, puzzled by his enthusiasm. Eunuch Wang paused, awkwardly suppressing the smile on his face. He slowly composed himself and said in a low voice, "The palace is dangerous. This servant will accompany you." Getting out of the manor was easier than I had expected. Looking toward the palace from the street, columns of smoke and fire billowed up and shouts of battle echoed everywhere. My heart leapt into my throat. Outside the palace gates, I ran into my father and Song Yuan. My father glanced at me coldly while Song Yuan blocked my path. "Don't go in, it's dangerous inside. Furthermore, you and Prince Jin have history. He might kill you in the chaos." "This is my business. I don't need your concern." I pushed Song Yuan aside. My father scolded him from behind, though he was clearly speaking for me to hear. "Don't bother with a fool. Let her go to her death." Song Yuan chased after me and whispered, "Prince Jin doesn't even know if you're alive. Don't go." I didn't look at him and followed Eunuch Wang into the palace. Inside the palace, there was shouting and running everywhere. But Zhao Huaiyu was nowhere to be seen, until I turned a corner and suddenly spotted someone standing in the shadows. He held a sword, his back to the firelight, though I couldn't see his face. The blood dripping from his body was plain to see. I stood there, frozen in place. The man turned his head and saw me too. The murderous look on his face, the cold cruelty in his eyes. He couldn't hide them in time. When our eyes met, he was stunned as well. But the next moment, he dropped his sword with a clatter and called out, "My lady, why have you come here?" His voice remained gentle and elegant, and his stride as he walked over was calm and steady. This was Zhao Huaiyu, a Zhao Huaiyu I had never seen before. Was I surprised? Both surprised and not. Zhao Huaiyu approached in a few quick steps and looked me over anxiously. Was the journey here smooth? I looked at his blood-stained, light-colored robe. and at the wet, bloody footprints he left on the stone floor as he approached, then nodded. Your Highness, did everything go as planned? He reached out with the hand that had been gripping his sword. The plan went smoothly. My arm is just a bit sore. I tapped his arm and sneered. Mine is sore too. Sore at heart. He took my hand and watched me cautiously. Is my lady angry? I wasn't angry after all. I had probably guessed it long ago. How could a prince who grew up alone in the palace really be weak and helpless? Was it you who killed the crown prince? He nodded. I didn't intend to act so quickly, but he called you a fool, and that didn't please me. Zhao Huaiyu rocked my hand. I didn't mean to keep it from you. I was just afraid that once I regained my health, my lady would truly cease to care for me at all. When have I ever ceased to care for you? My lady wasn't truly invested. You just treated me like an employer and yourself like the manager. He murmured this, sounding rather willful. What I want is your heart. So he had heard my conversation with the nanny last year and kept it in his heart. We can talk later. Go and attend to your important business. He leaned over to hug me, nuzzling against my ear. My important business is actually you. Fine, I want to be empress. Go and pave the way for me. He looked at me intently, held me in his arms again, and said softly, thank you. Zhao Huaiyu had closed the net he had been weaving for 7 years. Beyond my astonishment, I couldn't help but admire his ability to devise strategies. On the 16th day of the first lunar month, Zhao Huaiyu ascended the throne and established the era name Shenkang. On the 18th, I was named empress. As the courtiers paid their respects, I stood below the high steps. Looking down at the officials, I saw my father, his hair white, his back hunched, kneeling in trepidation. Song Yuan looked up at me once, his face full of panic as he hurriedly lowered his head. Zhao Huaiyu is busy, and I am not having an easy time either. The Jiang household has submitted 7 or 8 petitions to enter the palace to see me. Today, I finally had some free time, so I saw them. Madame Jiang led my sisters in, congratulating me with a mix of tears and smiles. Her Highness was destined to be empress, the fortune teller said, since you were young that your nobility would be beyond measure. Madame Jiang said with a smile, regardless of whether she was sincere or not. But the bowing at this moment was real and genuine. It is a pity that I have no heirs yet. I smiled, looking at my second sister's belly, which had yet to show. Is the pregnancy stable, Madame Song? My second sister looked at me in terror, knelt down with a thump and replied, by the grace of the Empress, the pregnancy is stable. I am very pleased. For the past dozen years, I bowed and scraped to make a living under them. For the rest of their lives, they will have to walk on eggshells. Her Highness is a blessed person. You will surely have many children and long-lasting fortune. I thought of Zhao Huaiyu's health. That is hard to say. We have been married for a year and a half. Yet we have not consummated the marriage. He tells me he is cold every night and holds me close, but he never says a word about that matter. However, even if his body truly suffers from some ailment now, I do not mind. Life is already satisfying. One cannot expect everything to be perfect and go according to plan. In the evening, Eunuch Wang asked me to go to the Linyuan pavilion. Along the way, I asked him what the matter was, and Eunuch Wang seemed very excited. His Majesty says he has something to discuss with you. I went, but Zhao Huaiyu was not there. Inside the room, a pair of dragon and phoenix candles flickered, and the room was filled with a strange atmosphere. Your Highness. I called out, heard the sound of water from the back room, and walked around the screen. Zhao Huaiyu was just coming out of his bath, draped in a robe. His hair hung down, wet and dripping. He turned to look at me, his cheeks slightly flushed, looking quite alluring. I was startled and raised an eyebrow. Why is no one serving you? I did not want to see anyone else. He walked over, rested his head on my shoulder, and murmured in a low voice, I see too many people all day long at night. I only want to be with you. I cleared my throat softly. Then I shall dry your hair, and we can rest early. He gave a soft, and let me dry his hair. I asked him if he was cold, and he looked up at me and nodded. I am cold, hold me, my lady. As he spoke, he wrapped his arms around my waist, pulled me to sit on his lap, and held me tight. It really is much warmer. I couldn't help but laugh and pushed him slightly. Other men marry a wife for this, or that reason when it comes to you. Are you marrying me just to keep warm? He lifted his head and laughed at me. In the flickering candlelight, his gaze was gentle and his smile captivating. My lady doesn't just warm my body. He grabbed my hand and placed it over his heart. Right here, because of you, it is also glowing with warmth. I looked down at him and he looked back at me. By the way, what are the reasons other men marry for? Hard to say, let me ask around and find out. He suddenly lifted my chin and pressed his lips against mine in a light peck. Is that the sort of thing you meant? I laughed. He deepened the kiss. By the time I came to my senses, we were already lying down, and he asked me, I want us to have a child next year. Why next year? I'm afraid that if we have a child, you'll pay even less attention to me. I chuckled and gave him a light tap. I have a question for you. That day Song Xiaoxiao said she saw me smashing the eternal lamp at Fahua Temple. What was that really about? Zhao Huaiyu was hesitant at first, but in the heat of the moment he had no choice but to confess. It turned out he had seen me twice before. The memory that stuck with him was when I scolded the abbot over my mother's eternal lamp. At the time he thought that if he were to die, he would also want someone to light a lamp for him. Later, he looked into my background, understood my situation, and didn't propose marriage then. Instead, he arranged for the imperial decree to marry me for good fortune to ward off illness. He calculated that I would voluntarily ask to marry him just to get out of that house. He also calculated that this would be the only way I could use the marriage as leverage to bargain with my father. Sure enough, everything had gone according to his schemes. As for not consummating the marriage, he felt that since I didn't have him in my heart, rushing things would only wrong me. Your Highness is certainly thoughtful. I pointed at the canopy netting. The holes in this netting can't even compare to the number of schemes you have in your head. Zhao Huaiyu kissed me and chuckled softly. Say whatever you like. As long as I have you, nothing else matters. I smiled faintly and looked toward the flickering candlelight in the distance. I'm so glad that I stepped forward that day to tell my father I would be the one to marry you.